Welcome to phase 3 of your Pillars of Performance program. This is the beginning of your squat day, your leg day. And I hope by now you should have a different sensation of your body, different capabilities. Maybe it even looks different or is performing different. And this is the last phase in our training program together. And so we're going to finish off with kind of the final evolutions of all these movements. And so start lying on your back. This is going to be our evolution of our heel taps. And so we're going to add a lot more variability that would be representative of what you might experience in sports. So as you've been kind of normal and vanilla tapping your heels, we're going to have a lot more variability. So one is going to be just going straight all the way out, which resembles you just jumping up and down in the air without losing your cylinder in the middle. And then we can have some variations where the hips will rotate, but the shoulders will stay relaxed and still on the ground, and everything will still extend. She's staying very cylindrical here, and there isn't any rib flaring or any jarring or jerking motions happening at her spine. It's extremely stable, same way yours is. There's nothing you need to do to squeeze in your belly or brace your stomach. Just try to keep your back flat to the ground and a full cylindrical abdomen. You can also rotate the shoulders and still extend all 4 limbs away. And then the hardest one will be rolling over onto the corner or side of your pelvis and shoulder blade on each side, trying to stay balanced on those 2 bones and reaching away. And notice that there's going to be these wiggles to try and adapt and stay balanced here, and that's a lot of the point. You should be able to do it on both sides, although one side will probably be harder than another, and that's perfect for you to become aware of and then practice extra on that side. I hope you understand that these principles here apply to jumping, squatting, defensive movements, as how well do your legs move with a stable cylinder? That's all we're training. I want you to take these principles onto the court with you so that they're not just isolated to the gym or the floor of your garage, depending on where you're doing this, that these are movement skills for sport and life. So with that, moving on. Welcome to the last iteration of your high diagonal sitting and stepping. This is going to be a doozy. This is going to be a lot harder for those of you who are made it here and can do this well. So it's going to be a similar setup as before, side sitting on one hip, hand out in front of you, but now you're only going to have one hand, and I want you to be able to move fast. And then at the bottom, go ahead and relax for a second. At the bottom, you all should be in this really twisted position, only weight bearing on this one hand. And so that's what I want you to look for as she's at the bottom of these fast reps. Perfect. So if you're not yet sure of where your spine is positioned, I'm going to echo something that I've said, well, throughout this entire thing, and I hope you've done it, is video yourself, compare it to these videos, and spot subtle differences between Melissa and yourself, and then start merging the 2 together. She's doing these extremely well and in a very efficient position. I want you guys to mimic those positions. So now we're going to progress your pistol squat. And we don't have the PVC pipe anymore, no more crutches. And now I want you to be able to do it body weight or with an additional weight. And this can be a bucket of rocks, your house cat, whatever. Just don't get clawed. It's not my fault if your cat gets angry. I want you to be able to do a pistol squat with load and go fast. So what that looks like. Perfect. The key thing is if you're going to go fast, your knees and your feet have to point the same direction. When you have one side that's clearly harder than another, like she does, do more on the harder side. Okay, we're seeking out balance here, where we want some more symmetry between your legs. Despite you jumping on both legs as a volleyball player, you load them very differently, and they need to be symmetrical in this kind of movement. Then grab your house cat or dog, hold it, and then you can hold it different ways as you go up and down. You can have it forward if you feel like you're going to fall backwards. If you've got a pretty good balance, you can load it on the shoulder. And repeat. Again, that knee and that foot need to point forward. For those of you who are right-handed volleyball players, most of you on the right side will have your foot point outwards and knee go inwards. You might be able to do your lift like this, but this isn't how knees are supposed to bend. So do the work to do it slow, or go back to last phase where you have the PVC pipe so that your knees and feet point the same direction, so your body stays happy and healthy. So you had that PVC pipe to help you with those variations last time. This time, again, no more PVC pipe, no more crutches. I want to see how low can you go with one leg going out to the side without your knee and your feet deviating from pointing the same direction, and control it. Fantastic. She's making tiny corrections along the way to keep her knee and her feet pointing the same direction. If you need to tap that leg on the ground for balance, go ahead. It's not against the rules. Just know the intention is to only have that one leg on the ground. Simple enough. Get to it. So for phase 3 of your hip hinging, we're not going to change too much. I want you to continue to hip hinge with both legs with all those variated turns. If you have access to heavier weights, start using some heavier weights. So, and then also the army crawl. Keep going with that. That thing is hard. You are going to keep working on it. It's going to keep being hard, but you'll get better at it. So those two movements should take you a really long way. And that's one of the goals of this course, is that you really have understood and mastered the fundamentals that I teach to all my athletes here. And those two are one of them, or two of them. So what we're going to go over today is a multi-directional single leg hip hinge. You should have access to at least a sandbag or a bag of rocks or something with some heft to it. We're going to use a kettlebell because we've got plenty of weights here, but for you, it's whatever weight you can do. I'd like you to do something quite heavy and challenging, but still feels good and doable, and that you're, most importantly, keeping your skeleton in the positions that you've spent the last 8 weeks learning about. Ignore this board here. That's just because we're on a wrestling mat and the surface is hard to balance, so gave her a firm surface. So she's going to imagine that she's going down on tapping the weight to a number on the clock, where that's 12 o'clock, and then she'll progress over towards whichever direction, towards, that would say, be 1 o'clock, and then even further to 2 o'clock. As she goes towards the corners or the edges, that knee and foot must stay pointing forward and pointing the same direction, that your knee and your feet don't start getting cockeyed. If you feel that 10 o'clock is your hardest number to go towards, keep repping out 10 o'clock. If it's more on the 2 o'clock side, rep out that area that's a lot harder for you. And again, film yourself. See how your spine is positioned. Is it straight? Meaning, is there a lumbar curve, like a valley at the bottom, a slight hill and rounding at the top? Or is your knee and your foot pointing where you believe it to be pointing? These are essential things that you need to become more aware of as a developing athlete. By now, I actually want you to tweak some of your daily movement vitamins where you should be ready to hang from one hand. It's something that we do in the gym often. It's actually, we have a leaderboard for who can hang the longest. Close to a minute is what some of my athletes can do from one hand, and there's nothing special about them that makes them do that. It's just that they've practiced it. So start getting used to hanging from one hand. The first exercise in this pulling program of phase 3 is going to be a spinning scapular pull-up, and that looks like this. So she'll spin around just like you did in the last phase. And then on the way back, she will turn and pull up so that her shoulder blade pulls her head towards her hand. Notice that her elbow stays straight and it's just a vertical spine motion. One side is definitely going to be easier than another for you in this movement. So again, as always, spend a little bit more time ironing out your asymmetries. If you can't go all the way around, that's fine. Just rotate into your shoulder as much as you can and then pull the shoulder blade down or head up away from the shoulder, and you'll do great. This next one is something that I find to be really useful for overhead athletes. Volleyball is one of them, as it integrates the arm to the core in just a slightly different way than all the other exercises have that we've done previously. Key things with this is slow and steady, and just trying to have control and awareness of your body. At the finished position, what you'll see in a moment, you probably won't have much awareness of where your spine is positioned. So again, video yourself, compare, and then refine your observations with what your intentions are. So the elbows will bend a little bit, and then she will just get her spine to be parallel with the ground, holding here for about 3 to 5 seconds, come back down, slowly and under control, and repeat. Notice her knees are staying up very high, close to her chest, kind of like in a compact cannonball. Her elbows are staying bent, and 2 to 3 of these is going to be enough for a set. So please go carefully, do a decent amount of sets with a lot of rest in between. And again, the important part is control, not just getting to the end position endlessly over and over and over again, like so many other training programs out there. I want you to control your body, and that's what really leads to a lot of the benefits that you want of hitting harder and jumping higher. And to finish off your pulling program is progressing you towards almost a one-arm pull-up. But instead of pulling up, you're going to do a one-arm descent of a pull-up. So you'll go up normally, shift your weight to one side, have a little bit of assistance with that other hand as you descend under control. How much you shift will dictate how hard it is. Some of you will stay in the middle, shift 5% over, and that's enough. Others will shift almost 80 to 90% and be able to descend from the top of a pull-up. I really like knees being up here. It helps integrate the core to some of the arm musculature. And again, as everything that we've done earlier, vary up the grip. I really like this one for most of you. This is where I want you to spend most of your time, but then also have gripping the pull like this, as well as like this, and switched like that, or mixed. Welcome to phase 3 of your pushing program of your arms. This is going to be a challenge. I'm leaving you with some room to grow. It's going to be very evident that if you didn't do the last 8 weeks of program and just try to do these, you're going to have a hard time. I can't be there to watch you. Some of these are going to be difficult and they're going to challenge tissues in different ways. It should be somewhat prepared based on these last 8 weeks. But if something doesn't feel right, if it feels too intense, if it's too hard, please wait to try these things or get lots of reps at them. I really want to challenge your arms to meet the fundamentals of this course, yet things take time. So please be patient, please be wise, and listen to your body. So this first one is going to be, well, I call it the harder tricep push-up because everything else that we've done is a lot easier compared to this. Turn sideways, actually. So in the past, we've had your arms pretty high up, and now you're going to have them so your elbows are on the ground and your hands are pretty much in line with your shoulders. I'm only going to ask you to push up to your knees, not for your feet like a normal push-up. The key thing is that her hips and her elbows and her spine are all going to lift at one time. Perfect. Relax for a second. Notice if you rewind it a little bit, her spine shape stayed exactly the same. She didn't come up in different segments. Like, what would it look like if she came up in segments? Like that. That's kind of an ugly push-up. Doesn't really work your arms very much, but it gets you to the top, so a lot of people think that it's a normal push-up. How your body positions and how it completes this is the important part. This is really hard. You're not going to be able to bang out 8 reps in a row. You're going to need to do one and then probably rest a little bit and then do another until you become tolerant and strong enough to do this. One more, if you got it. And see how 3 reps alone started to get her to really struggle there? So please, take your time with this and be smart. We're progressing you to a 1-arm push-up. And I'm going to give you some tools. And that's going to be how you position your leg through this, makes it easier or harder. So you'll start at the bottom with the opposite knee pretty high up. The higher up it goes, the easier it will be. And then I just want that spine and hips to ascend as the knee and hand stabilize. Perfect. You're going to have to fight for this one just like she did. I like that she's not veering her shoulder super far away from her hand. Show us what that would look like. Yeah, so I don't want you to take weight away from that hand. I'd rather you keep weight on it and fight for this rep. Okay, switch. What I want to show you from this angle is that the more this knee comes down, the harder this is going to be. And I'd like you to be able to go through a big range of this. And see if you can go adjust it a little further. Perfect. The only comment I would have for her is that I want to see shoulders and hips lift at the same time. And so she's just not there yet, but maybe you are. And she does exactly what you should do. Bring the knee back up and keep going. So remember all those bent arm bear things I had you do early on? Now is when they're going to pay off. We're going to do somewhat of a plyometric for your arm in the bear position. I call it bounding bear. It's kind of fun, and it also kind of makes sense. So elbows bent, one arm goes away, and she's just going to try to bounce and catch. Perfect, relax. One thing that I can see that you can't from this angle is that her body didn't shift drastically to one side or another. Her spine stayed centered in between all 3 limbs that are on the ground. Perfect, relax. What I want you to try and do is be catching yourself with your elbow and your arm, not just your shoulder blade. A lot of you might want to just catch with a locked elbow. allow your whole arm to be a spring and be suspension for you. That might mean that you push up and then you kind of collapse into a catch. That's okay. I'd rather you bend and absorb than lock it out and just put it all into your shoulder blade, where your shoulder is just kind of, well, acting as a suspension when you have this massive appendage called an arm that should be your suspension and should be taking the load for this. This one's new, shoulder roll to hand. It's going to stitch together a lot of the previous movements into one fluid movement, and it looks like this. So the key thing as the starting position is I want you folded into that shoulder, almost like you're lying on your stomach, or your sternum is touching your bicep. And then you will roll up to your elbow and then up to your hand, just like this. The other hand isn't really being used, it's just kind of hanging out on her body. And again, like the other exercise, the lower this knee goes, the harder it gets. Perfect. Welcome to phase 3 of your power program. I really hope you've been doing these exercises, and to be honest, I think a lot of you have skipped out on these. Those of you who have, bravo, these are going to really pay off for you. They don't look as sexy or appealing as a lot of the other stuff, but the research is pretty damn clear with how beneficial these are for a functional stiffness that helps you jump higher. And so we're going to take your ankle dribble and just increase the amplitude, increase how big the circle is that your foot makes, and we're going to call it a calf dribble, meaning before you're making a circle kind of around your ankle, now you're going to go up and over your calf. All the same principles apply as before. Nothing changes there. How your foot needs to contact and prepare for impact is by bending at the ankle. That's how the best in the world prepare for impact, is preloading their spring so that once they're on the ground, they can push really aggressively and get off the ground quickly and very high. So calf dribble looks like this. Perfect. Go ahead. What you're going to want to do, just like I showed you in the first video, is slow-mo yourself. Feel how your foot hits the ground. See how it hits the ground. Do this barefoot, provided you're not doing this, on asphalt or shards of glass. Like, be smart around your surroundings. Don't just blindly listen to me. And see if that you're preparing your foot for impact and having that circular motion. There should be a slight spring once you are in the ground, and then you bounce back up to keep that dribble going, and most of all, to develop a good stiffness in your legs when you're jumping. This is just a really fast and compact series of extremely quick single leg hops. That's all running is a truncated version of jumping. Just like what we started and what we've been doing for the 8 weeks, those single leg hops that you should have been practicing are going to increase in amplitude. The biggest predictor for success here is how you control your ankle and your foot. I'm going to ask you to start jumping a lot higher, and your foot cannot change. I want it to still be bent and still impact the ground with almost heel first or flat foot contact. What that looks like compared to the previous video, if you compare, is going to be me jumping a lot higher. I won't be able to get off the ground as quickly, but my intention is the same. And that intention is what really drives a lot of adaptation, so that I will recognize how long I'm on the ground. I want to get off quicker and quicker and quicker. And that is what drives my improvement in the ensuing weeks. It looks really similar. If I look head on, I know that my knee is not collapsing inwards. I'm going so fast, I should be, that my knee doesn't have time to do that, and yours shouldn't either. That's going to be what determines whether or not you need to jump higher or lower, is how well do you control that knee wobble, and can you still jump and land on a flat foot and then rebound again. I'm wearing some pretty minimalist shoes, but I'm on a foam floor, so it allows for me to be pretty comfort and springy. If you're going to be on cement or hardwood or asphalt or concrete, wear some shoes for this. If you're going to be on the grass, you'll probably be fine barefoot. And why I like people being barefoot or in shoes like these that are very malleable is it gives your brain a lot of awareness to feel how your foot is contacting the ground, and not enough people have awareness of their feet at all. So please pay attention. Again, review yourself on video and intend to be quick.